Welcome to Pixel Theater, everyone. My name is Nick Noel, and I am one of your hosts. And as always, I am joined by my illustrious co-host.
Ron, stop poking me, Stratton.
That is some really good voice work there, Ron. I really appreciated it.
It's funny because all of the core mechanics of an incredible strategy game, all I remember is you could click on the NPCs until it did that, and it made me laugh. You go, stop! Very fun. How are you?
So, today, what are we doing? What are we talking about? What's going on? First, what is Pixel Theater? It is a podcast. That should be readily apparent. What is the podcast on, you may be asking? Why do this? These are two very good questions. To answer the first one, we talk about mostly film adaptations of video games. We may be slipping in some other video game-related media or movies into the things we want to talk about. And why do we do it? You know, this is an excellent question. Sometimes I'm glad I asked it to me. Sometimes we do it because it's just goofy, silly nonsense times. But also, I do find it interesting, and I think Ron does as well. I hope he does, and if he doesn't, I don't know why he's here.
It's part hanging out with my friend, part coping mechanism for the end of the world. And,
okay,
those two together are like chocolate and peanut butter.
There it is. Delicious. But I find interesting looking at how things are adapted. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I'm cracking up over here. How things are adapted and how they are translated from one medium to another. So when you look at video games as a very interactive medium, what does it mean to translate that to a more passive medium like film or even a TV show? Does it work? And as we've noticed from our season 0, our first exploration and deep dive into this, it doesn't. It doesn't usually work. It doesn't always. Most of the time it doesn't. But sometimes you get some fun little gems. So today we are going to be talking about WarCraft. Did I already introduce WarCraft? I don't think so. This is a bit of a peek behind the curtain here, everybody. This is the third time we've started this intro. So if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. I don't remember what's going on. In addition to this being the third time we're starting the intro for this one, this is also the third time we're recording it because we screwed up so badly the first two times. So please bear with us.
We love WarCraft the movie, and we need to talk about it as much as we can.
Exactly. So we're going to be talking about WarCraft, a fun little ditty that unfortunately did not do too well at the box office, and so we are unlikely to see a sequel to.
It's such a crazy modern times problem when a movie. What was the budget? 160 million.
Something like
that.
And
I think worldwide it did 400 million, and that's considered a dismal failure, which is just crazy. But that's the way the Mickey Mouse crumbles, man. Like it's
That's the way the Mickey Mouse crumbles.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. 160 million, 450 worldwide.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I knew the 400 number. I wasn't sure how much. I thought it was like 200 million because they always inflate when there was like an advertising budget. So this was always a $400 million movie, kind of like Superman Returns. I always heard there was a $250 million movie. It wasn't, but the entire budget of Tim Burton's Superman was rolled into that failed project. Like every time they tried to start a Superman, it was considered part of that budget. So you end up with this, and then all the advertising that goes into it,
and
all that.
I mean, I don't know the inner workings of Hollywood, but my guess is they do that in order to screw over the people making the movie. Most of the reasons, if you look at like, hey, why'd they do that weird accounting thing? It's to screw over the people making the movie so they don't have to pay them. Anyway, let's go into our first segment, and let's kind of saunter over to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, Ron. Welcome to the lobby.
Hi.
This is where we get to talk about whatever before we talk about the thing we said we were going to talk about.
Oh, that's right.
What have you been doing? Last time we talked about Godzilla versus King Kong. King Kong
Oh
versus
yeah.
Godzilla. Which one is it? I don't
I'm
remember.
still recovering from that. King Kong versus
Okay.
Godzilla. It's not good. I have a huge box set. Of course, I mean for our man Godzilla, the Godzilla Blu-ray box is like this big, and it's just some of the greatest from the original. I forget what the term for the era is, but it takes you through all his 60s and 70s adventures. So, as a part of kind of palate cleanser for the new movie, I've been going back to those, and they're not good, but they're still fun. You know, like I'm not saying like those mastered storytelling of this can't. The original movie though, like that's top tier. Like that's such an incredible horror movie. I like that better than King Kong. If you're comparing the classics, and it's such a tragic allegory for what Japan was going through and the nuclear threat. And but Godzilla is just genuinely terrifying in that one, and the music. So that's why I these last three or four bum me out so much because they mishandle the music so bad. It's like the themes. It's like you go into a new Star Wars. It just did kind of happen, and instead of getting the classic music, it plays, but it's like slightly off key. You know, like it just doesn't. They never understood why Godzilla's music was so important, and it's so important. And the originals just do it like gangbusters, so it's great. So I've just been watching old Godzilla movies and waiting for the pandemic to end. That's it.
Nice. That's a pretty good time.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I don't think I've talked about this. I started playing Horizon Zero Dawn recently, and I
was hoping to hear your opinion.
I almost put it down because I thought it was going to be too complicated and too hard.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because like at the beginning, you are very weak. Like you die almost immediately. You have to be very sneaky. That goes away very quickly. Like first half hour, 45 minutes playing the game, most of the monsters robots or whatever you interact with, you can have a pretty good shot of just taking one-on-one without too much trouble. But those first couple levels before you level up to like 3 or 4, that's rough. I died probably like 10 times just in the first 15 minutes of playing, just because I wasn't being sneaky enough and I was trying to like, just those watchers just saw me basically.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, Horizon Zero Dawn is this really interesting post-apocalyptic video game where you play as Aloy, who's this kind of hunter in a human tribe in a world that used to be highly technological, but has since gone into disrepair. But there are still these self-replicating robots who seem kind of like animals in some respects, roaming the earth, and they hunt the robots for parts in order to make weapons and things like that. They hunt them for metal. And they've developed a whole ecosystem. So there are robots who patrol and look out for threats. There's robots who break down older robots and get the resources from them. There's just predator robots. There's prey robots. So there's like horses and deer. And it's pretty really interesting.
Well realized universe, and I love just the mechanics of hunting something in that game. Like, you know, like Red Dead and all these other games have hunting, but there's just something about the scale of that game and ducking with her, going through the tall grass with your bow and arrow drawn, that I found really addictive.
They do a good job of like, how do you attack something that is so much more powerful than you? And often, as you go through, you can't do it head on. You have to do what actual earlier human organizations and tribes did, which is, you know, set traps. So you're solo, so you don't really hunt in groups, but it's also studying the animal or the robot in this case you're looking to hunt, and figuring out where its weaknesses are and attaching that. Like this is interesting. One of the most satisfying experiences, small kind of playable experiences I've had in a video game in a long time, is shooting a watcher like right through the eye and it goes down like immediately. Like that's
so cool.
I mean, no matter how many times I do it, and I know you don't get the watcher lens then, but I don't care.
It's fine. Just... it's worth the sacrifice.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I've been really enjoying that, and I'd encourage anyone to get that. I think
Yeah,
it's
fun
only
'cause
like $20 on the PlayStation Store at this point.
yeah, for like the Game of the Year edition, So
Yeah,
do you get the Frozen
I don't
whatever
remember.
that
Maybe.
DLC is? I can't remember now either.
Hmm.
But it's funny to me that the PS5 and this next gen kind of became a thing because I really remember Horizon Zero Dawn and like God of War and Spider Man. Those felt like next gen games to me. Like even back when they came on the PS4, I was like, wow, this is what I expected like a PS5 game to look like. So yeah, those are really cool games. I can't wait for the PS5 sequel to come out whenever the hell that's going to be.
Mm,
But that's
it's
soon.
exciting.
They are working on it. Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing. You ready to jump into the arcade?
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Grab your quarters because we're heading to the arcade, everybody. Okay. So WarCraft,
Mm-hmm.
a seminal video game, one of the first kind of real time strategy games, built as we've kind of talked about outside of the podcast, kind of built off of the Dune video game, which was a
So,
similar
I was gonna bring that
similar
up.
vein.
Yeah.
Not built
Hmm.
off of, but maybe inspired by.
Sure.
Command and
Like
Conquer
kind of
was
the
directly built off of it, but
yeah. But I guess evolution isn't the right word. I guess it depends on how the angle you came to with PC gaming. I mean,
mhm.
because was Command and Conquer first? That's something I feel like I should have
I
known
feel
going
like
into
they
this.
were almost
All kind of at the
honestly, I
same
feel like
time.
Warcraft was first. I don't
I think
know.
you're right. I think you're right.
Because
Because just Dune was on the
I didn't know
radar.
Warcraft till like Warcraft 3, but there was like a whole other
Ah,
thing before that came out
uh,
like in the 90s, I
Dune
want to
was the
say.
first time I heard that term of like a real time strategy as opposed to
Hmm.
being turn based. But Warcraft and it's funny as we covered this. Like I wasn't sure when I was repeating myself. Probably one of our failed attempts at recording this, but Warcraft jumped out to me. It was just this big red box at like Funko Land, and I was like, oh my god, like this will play on the Mac we have. Like it just being a younger kid, but just kind of getting like there's so many games I couldn't play. Like we couldn't play Doom. We went Windows or Mac instead of PC, and a lot of those early games that are so classic and iconic didn't run on our machine. That bummed me out as a kid who just loved video games. Having the system specs be reason I couldn't play something. But Warcraft was really cool. I remember just thinking I got so hung up on the resource management and like I had to have all my houses and huts and barracks all line up in a certain way. That's why I've always been an absolutely awful strategic player. Like my buddies just destroy me in StarCraft 2, which is
Hmm.
another iteration of a game like this. And but it's fun. It's really cool. It's an iconic, it's funny to me, like if you were to bring up Warcraft today, most people familiar with Warcraft probably have never touched any of the strategy games because it's such
Yeah.
a iconic MMO, which I
Hmm.
ironically have like no background in. A girl I was seeing at the time was really into it, and all her friends were really into it, so they made me a character and said, "Go play with us." And I ran through the woods, and there was no hook. I just it did not connect with me. The only
Yeah.
MMO I got into was such a basic version of what an MMO would be, and that was Fantasy Star Online. That was my jam, and
Am
nothing
I?
else has felt like that.
Why do I feel like it was you and a bunch of 12-year-old girls who were into Fantasy Star Online?
That's
Maybe
probably
I
an
don't know
accurate
what it
assessment.
is. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. You
No,
know,
I mean,
you know what was this game I never played but did remind me after my mildly sexist comment was there's a game called Ragnarok that every single one of my sister's friends was into,
I
and
know
it
what
was
you're
this
talking
very
about.
basic
Yeah,
kind of like sprite based online
MMO.
game. I have no
Yeah,
idea what you did in it,
me
but
neither.
every like 12-year-old girl that was in my orbit at the time.
Uh-huh.
That sounds weird. They were my sister's friends, and she was 12. Is that better?
Yeah,
Um,
a little bit.
um, ugh, um, was playing that game. And now,
Hmm.
granted, uh, they were the weirdos, but that just meant they were cool.
I got
Um,
into some. There's a weird game called Corpse Party, and you hear that name and you go, "Jesus, what is this
I'm
going to
like,
be?"
ooh, sign
But
me up. Oh, wait,
but it's
you were
this
going somewhere else, huh?
adorable. it was these adorable little anime sprites, and you're all like Japanese high school girls, like getting killed off by ghosts in some mansion or haunted high school. But I played it on the PSP. I think they're on PC as well. Weird games, but fun, very cool. But yeah, RPGs I got into. MMOs never hooked me. Maybe the most recent Final Fantasy one's pretty popular, and I have friends who play it, and I've always kind of wondered if I want to try that. I think it's 14, but I haven't.
Yeah, so I've been. Not that I looked it up. So World of Warcraft or Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, came out in '94, and then Command and Conquer '95. So it was a little bit predated it, and I think it. I mean, I remember playing Dune, and my memory of Dune compared to what real-time strategy games are now is that it was relatively uncomplicated. Like I don't think there was a very sophisticated AI.
Right.
And so it was basically it would pretty much leave you alone until you went and attacked that base. And then,
right. It is rudimentary. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think these games kind of built on that and made it better and better. And the thing I remember reading about and also experiencing was Warcraft was I'll just say the caveat, the first one I experienced was where you were given missions instead of like starting with like this and build up a base. You know, you were given like a finite number of people and you have to play out part of a story.
Was this Warcraft 3?
I think it was Warcraft 3 when that's
the
one
Warcraft
I played
3
the most.
Took this fork in the road that caught me off guard because I loved Warcraft 2 and was looking forward to 3. And 3 was great, but it was an art style that was like, oh, this is different, you know, because I've always associated early Warcraft and Diablo with very dark, gothic horror elements, despite Warcraft kind of being goofy.
Kind of to play out. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Warcraft 3 just had this really distinct art style, and it put a lot of focus on missions and these hero characters you had. And that was cool, but it was definitely the genesis of their brains kind of going like, ooh, MMOs like are in our future. You know, I don't know. It was definitely the early signs of Warcraft taking a different direction than its earlier games.
Yeah, where it was kind of what we were talking about in one of our previous episodes when we were talking about Street Fighter and the difference between Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, where just the size and the color palette of those characters is just so vastly different between the original Warcraft and Warcraft 3, and then especially like Command and Conquer, you really don't care about the individual people that you are, individual units that you are interacting with.
Cannon fodder, go.
Yeah, like they're just tiny, like it doesn't matter. But in Warcraft, you were actually playing a person eventually, and things would happen to that person.
Yeah.
If you were playing the story, obviously,
Yeah, another quick segment, Ron and Nick make a game really cool that isn't out there. I always thought a Command and Conquer game would be amazing if you could somehow balance that, like you had a DM or some type of leader character who was playing the field like a Command and Conquer game, but individual units for like Call of Duty, so that everyone's running around on the field like in a first person style or third person, depending on your preference, but it was all dictated by real-time strategy choices other players are making. Like,
that would be
like
interesting to
work?
like integrate two different styles, like somehow like have like an overview overlord player and then other players are that would be really cool. Like imagine if like World of Warcraft, like the bases changed or the scenarios changed each time because somebody was setting up different units and different ways to defeat you. Yeah.
And you want to have ranged attacks. You need this guy to build you, ranged fighters.
Like you have to communicate with your overlord to upgrade your character and to be able to do that.
So instead of going, oh shit, I didn't build a perimeter fence around this,
I'm sure
Master 74 is yelling, "Hey man, I need a fence over here," and I think that'd be cool.
I'm sure that'll be a really enjoyable experience and not one that will perpetuate
That's the
abuse
thing.
and
On paper,
bad
it's
feelings.
beautiful, but internet is awful. I'll
just
never forget
like
booting up.
just like any technology, it's beautiful until fucking people come along and have to start using it.
I'll never forget. Speaking of a name like that, like playing Red Dead Online for the first time. It's me and my buddies are all on horseback. We ascend this hill, and the sun comes up over the horizon, and it's this incredible immersive next level experience for me. And then I get shot in the face by a guy's like Donkey Blaster 48, and that's like, oh, I'm back in Detroit now, and that's what I'm back in the real world.
Or the people who go to like extremes. There's just like, okay, so the guy wearing nothing but a cowboy hat and a shotgun just killed me.
Yeah,
great,
yeah. Awesome. And a ukulele over his gun.
Great master ass blaster. That's too bad. Oh well. Yeah. Anyway, what else do we have to talk about for this? So in general, I played this game a little bit. I enjoyed it, but it's that similar problem that you have is I'm not good at real-time. I'm not good at games, really, in general. But I'm especially not good at real-time strategy games, and I'm especially not good at MMOs for different reasons. Yeah. One, real-time strategy, I can't think strategically. Like, I'm always thinking defensively, so I try and build up my base, but that doesn't work. You have to be constantly harrying and annoying your opponent in order to
my buddies
make them
would try
react.
to make me good StarCraft players, and my buddy was like, "Yeah, you have to be creating." I forget SCV. You have to be hitting the hotkey. Like everything was hotkey and keyboard based.
You have to make actual tactical units.
Yeah, so you need to be generating one every 4 seconds. I'm like, dude, I'm not counting while I play this. Are you out of your mind? I'm just making pretty designs out of my barracks. Like I don't know, like.
I couldn't get any of the I couldn't make the units. All I remember just dragging my mouse along half the guys I had and just all of you attack that guy, and it was no strategy at all. I wasn't using the light infantry to do the things that light infantry is supposed to.
I'm the only person that's played StarCraft on a Nintendo 64. That's I got that. Was so tickled with it. I used the stupid analog controller. It was nuts. I didn't beat it, but I got to the end on it.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I remember,
but I'm not.
I remember the only real-time strategy game I played really consistently was Age of Empires 2.
Yeah,
I think that was only because it came with the PC.
Sure.
And
I just love the art design of that one. It felt real, but not. It was really colorful.
It was an interesting idea where you weren't just, if I'm remembering it correctly, you weren't just playing as a civilization, but you were building up into a civilization. So you would go from Stone Age to Bronze Age to Steel Iron Age or whatever, and have to be researching different things. It kind of, I haven't looked into this, but I feel like maybe Civilization either was inspired by or it was inspired by Civilization. I don't really know if they parallel.
That's another one though. I've always admired Civilization, but man, when I played it, I was like, "Ooh, a lot going on here."
Yeah,
my monkey brain just wants to blow something up.
A lot going on here, guys. Maybe
that's a lot of.
Maybe I'm gonna peace out and play Street Fighter again.
Yeah. Do some Haloing tonight.
But, so, like I said, can't think strategically. And then with MMOs, it's kind of the same problem. I don't like grinding, which you need to be able to do. And then also, this is maybe going to sound silly, but it's something I've mentioned before. I find skill trees to be anxiety producing. Especially ones, the ones in Horizon Zero Dawn are pretty straightforward. It's just here you go. Or the ones in Ghost of Tsushima. Where it's just this isn't too bad. I kind of get it. There's not that many choices. But when you're dealing with multiple different character classes and there's things that'll get cut off if you go down
WarCraft looks like a nightmare when I see the skill trees. I'm just I don't want any part of this.
It's just I can't see the future. I don't know what this guy's going to need to be able to do.
Yeah. I just want to throw fireballs at people's faces.
That's all I've ever wanted to do, Ron.
Right.
So we have some experience, but the little experience with WarCraft. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about with the game before we go on?
No, the cool thing is, I would I thought going into the movie I would like, oh geez, I'm not following this MMO at all. But the good news is the movie's kind of an origin story of like the first game in the franchise. So it's really dealing with events that'll lead into the game series. So that's kind of cool. You can go in blind. You don't necessarily need to know. I'm sure most of why this movie didn't work for me are references I'm not getting, but we'll get into that.
Or setting up events that you have no emotional or intellectual experience with. Okay, everybody. So that's going to wrap up this section, and we're going to go into our third and final segment, feature presentation. So, WarCraft. We've set it up a little bit. Directed by Duncan Jones. Budget
Very
of about
talented
150.
filmmaker.
Made about 430, 450, something like that. Stars. It's just a pretty solid cast, actually.
Yeah.
Like Ben
Clancy
Foster's
Brown,
in here. Dominic Cooper.
Ben Foster.
Daniel Wu. Dominic Cooper from... I think he's best known for Need for Speed. I don't know what else he would be in.
Yeah, true.
Clancy Brown is in this. Daniel, like you said, Ruth Negga. What's interesting is I didn't realize until a little bit later that Ruth Negga, Naga. I'm so sorry, everybody. I have a full-time job. I can't look up people's names. That's not a good excuse, but it's the only one I have.
Ruth Negga, I think is how she pronounces that.
But they are both in Preacher.
I forgot she was in Preacher.
He is Preacher, and is her name? It's something cutesy, and I can't remember what it is. I want to say Daisy, but I could be wrong. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting that before Preacher, they were both in this movie.
Yeah, that's funny. She was Tulip O'Hare and Lucy?
Tulip, yeah.
Tulip, yeah, okay.
There we go. I knew it was some sort of flower name.
Very good in this. You get into this whole thing in this movie where I think the human characters are either unnecessary or just underdeveloped, or you've got Duratan and you've got these orcs that you focus on, and the movie feels like it's working in an animated sense. It's when you get the humans introduced and they look so out of place. They look more CG than the orcs do, if that makes sense. Everything feels very, very not even Sin City. What was the kind of damn near experimental Sky Captain?
Sky Captain World of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or similarly, like, The Spirit, which is
The Spirit. Yeah, it's like that too. Yeah.
Although I guess The Spirit's probably closer to Sin City.
Sin City, yeah. But still, it's that kind of. It works for those properties because you're accepting that it's this fantastical, like, art style avant-garde kind of thing. But in a movie where you're expecting photorealism from these creatures and then you're blending in humans and it doesn't jive, and I don't know why. If I were to pause a frame, it looks really good. The lighting's good, the skin and everything is great, but the humans just stick out like a sore thumb to me.
I think so. My interpretation was that it's because so much is CGI that, like, the orcs seem like they're in the world because their palette, the way
they're
that
rendered
the way that they're rendered is the way the world is rendered, and then when you put a real person in a virtual environment, especially when when you're dealing with fantastical objects like orcs, which aren't real. We don't have we can't recreate
There's
them,
no context. Yeah, we're not basing that. Oh, that's how that orc in New Jersey looks. You don't have that sense.
And it's also like whenever you have fully realized CG characters, I always prefer a mix of like puppetry and latex, and costuming and practical effects and CG.
The makeup on Paula Patton is really good. Corona. Although it is jarring to have her character and how important her character is, just kind of like standing amongst orcs, though. It's weird to me, but it doesn't. It's
like it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit and she went to Toon World,
right,
or
it's strange.
Toonville.
Like, they could have.
What was it? Damn it. Toontown.
I know
There it is.
Toontown. That's it.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
But there's something about, I don't know if she just needed some CG touching up, or I don't know how you blend those worlds, but it's weird to see her walking amongst the orcs. But again, it's another one where it's just our brains aren't jiving with this incredible job they've done. Like there's nothing on a technical level that's executed poorly. Our brains just know it's wrong. It's just knee deep in the uncanny valley, and we just know something's not right about this based on
things
her
aren't
walking
things
around.
aren't matching in it, and it can't match. Yeah, it's why, like, you know, when I think about what I wish this movie looked like, at least visually, I always go back to Hellboy 2, which I think is like the perfect mixture of practical and CG effect. Like everything looks gorgeous, it has weight, and then when you need to, it uses the CG to really good effect to either have
to ground it,
to have like massive like armies, or to have things that need to move quickly or at weird angles or something, and they mix it really well.
Guillermo's just next level with that shit. That's why I'm so upset.
He's been doing it for like 30 years, so.
But like, if we'd gotten his Hobbit, like that would have been an incredible 2-part movie. I think he really would have brought some gravitas to that. So yeah, I don't think anyone can really do that but him. But no, I agree with you. Like it's like what makes Where the Wild Things Are worked for me, because you just got these 99% practical elements, and you're just using the CG to give them a little bit of life and twinkle behind the eye, and it works. It sounds like it would have made it more expensive. So ergo, like you've got this movie that right away is pushing 200 million, and to do it right would have probably been 300 million. And the return would not have been there. But yeah, that's what they need to do. But it's funny because I know people shit on it, and it is what it is. But on a technical nerd level, Avatar pulled this off relatively well to me. Like having a human character stand next to a 10-foot blue person, it looked like a CG mess if that's not gelling for you, but they look properly in the environment. Does that make sense? Like, I think more so than this did anyway. When you're seeing the characters walk around on Pandora, it looks like they're there. Whereas it was just very apparent to me that they were just copied in.
And I guess you can kind of see the difference between a $150 million movie and a, Avatar says its budget was $250, doesn't it? But it was probably more like 3 or 4.
I mean, maybe. James Cameron's got like a blank check. They let him do whatever the hell he wanted.
So he's still like, to the point where, what has it been, 10 years? They're still letting him make Avatar movies. He hasn't released a second one since. He's only, I know we talk about this a lot, but I find it insane that he doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on Avatar.
They're working on 6 right now. Part 6, I think. Like 2, 3, and 4 are in
listen,
the can.
I don't like to revel in the failure of others, but for a little bit, just for like a day, it's going to be hilarious if those movies flop, because I can't see that anything more than diminishing returns. No one is clamoring for Avatar. Nobody saw Avatar and was like, can't wait for the sequel. Everyone was like, got it, done, don't need any more. But they are, everybody has pushed all their chips in on Avatar, and I am so excited to see what happens when these movies open.
If they ever
what if they never open? What if it's just some sort of like crazy?
The first one got pushed to December 2022.
Like they were supposed to come out like 3 years ago, weren't they, or something?
I think so.
Anyway, it's just funny. Back to
things
WarCraft.
that don't work. Yeah, so the armor looks out of place, although it is accurate to what they would look like in the game. I think. Yeah. Like it's doing justice to, like, you look at it. Hell, there's even some aerial shots where I'm like, holy shit, that kind of looks like some next gen WarCraft 4 strategy game. You know what I mean? Like the layout of the orc encampment reminded me of the games, and like there's some really like there was a lot of effort to look like the art style of the series on the screen. And again, if this had just been a full-on CG, like a Beowulf but good attempt at a CG film, you know, like this would have been gangbusters, I think. And they should have just embraced that.
You better be careful. Robert Zemeckis might be listening. What? Huh? Oh yeah.
Let me take out my toys.
They won't let me make those anymore.
Well, Beowulf, to a degree, I see the pros in that one, but that just didn't work because they didn't know how to capture the fine animations in your face like they do now with little cameras. Like I think if they tried that today, it might have worked better. But
I don't know,
that's
maybe.
a different podcast.
I want to talk a little bit about the story. We've talked a little about the technical elements. I want to talk about the story because I feel like, you know, I can forgive a lot of the technical issues.
Yeah,
because they're really not any more than what's inherent in a lot of movies that use heavy CGI.
That's very true. Very true.
And that is, like, the story is, you know, just as a brief thing, essentially orcs are from another world. A crazy, powerful orc wizard named Gul'dan makes a portal into the human world. The orc horde comes in because they want to take over Earth or whatever, Azeroth or something. Azeroth is a different place, isn't it? Or is that right? I don't know. I should know. I'm sorry, everyone. So you've got these two dueling sides. You've got the human world, the human kingdom, led by Dominic Cooper, who's Lane Wren, something like that. Yeah. As you put it, the MySpace, like, create my own Lord of the Rings character name generator is a real problem for this movie.
Is awful. I think that's why we've had so much trouble recording this podcast. It took me 2 attempts to pronounce Garona right. My Garona is how I got there.
There it is.
But Medivh, Anduin, Lothar. I mean, Lothar is kind of cool. That's from the games for sure. But Orgrim, just some of these are just really bad. I did not care for them.
Kagdar doesn't sound like a nerdy wizard man, but that's who he is.
That's who he is.
Medivh. Anyway, it's a real problem. Anyway, so you've got these two different sides, and who are fighting, and you know, I appreciate what they were trying to do in that they weren't saying one side's totally evil and one side's totally good. They were trying to have some nuance within each side, you know, where Duratan, who's one of the clan chiefs or something like that of the orcs, is kind of fighting against Gul'dan's rule, and you know, you've also got Ben Foster's character, the wizard, who's been corrupted, and he's the one who's calling the orcs over. So you know, both sides are kind of bad, and you know, I appreciate that. The problem is it makes it a more muddled story because you don't know who the main character is. Like, this movie arguably has 3 central characters that you are trying at all times to be the main character. And the movie is giving them their own story, so the center is constantly shifting. And that would be fine if this was a TV series, but it's a movie, and we don't have the time.
Pick a lane.
So like, it's the main character is either Duratan or Garona or Lothar. And at any one point in the movie, you wouldn't be able to tell. And it's also that their storylines are they're interwoven, but usually completely separate from each other. So it's also hard to keep track of. Like, I think we talked about this before, but it very much feels like they were trying to write a Game of Thrones thing, but didn't realize that they only had one movie to do it.
Right, exactly. Definitely affected by Game of Thrones, but and I respect, you know, because you've got orcs versus humans as the kind of DNA of this franchise. So, of course, you'd have a lead orc and a lead human. But yeah, you know, Garona kind of muddies the waters with that. Although I think ultimately her character has the most, I don't want to say nuance, but I'm most intrigued to see them do a sequel because of how her character ends things off. It's a little funny because I was impressed by it, but it is kind of jarring when I look back at it again. So King Wren, Lane Wren, you know, Dominic Cooper turns to her and says, "Look, you've got to kill me. They'll respect you," which is a major gamble. Ultimately, that's the orc code. Like, they're going to do that. But it's also very weird that they stopped having this conversation. If you look at the background plate, everyone's in slow motion. Like, an axe comes down on a guy like this. It's like, what is this conversation? Like, what's happening here? It's really weird.
We're going into Assassin's Creed assassination bullet time, where you can have a full conversation as in the 3 seconds it takes for somebody's heart to stop.
It's really weird. But ultimately, that little angle, you know, 'cause there's this kind of sexual tension between her and Lothar, which is interesting, for their species, and it's cool to have it end up where like you see her conflicted and hating that she's done this, she's betrayed Lady Taria, and all of that stuff is set up in the last like 10 minutes of the movie, where I'm like, oh, now I care. Now I
Yeah,
actually
this
want to see what's happening.
what a great place
over.
to start for the sequel. That's never going to happen.
I know. That's
Maybe we could have moved this up a bit. I'm just saying.
It sets up a sequel we're never going to get that I actually kind of wanted to see. Which that's
I mean, this is very similar to kind of I think how we felt about the first Tomb Raider movie, where we're like, I don't super love this movie, but I think I'd love the movie that came after it.
Yeah, and there's a promise of something else,
Yeah, and I heard that they're making a sequel to Tomb Raider, actually. So
yeah, she's in training, or they're filming. Yeah, so we're getting another one. I'll look forward to that.
The last thing I wanted to say to wrap this up was, what do you? Oh, is actually what I wanted to ask is what do you think could have been done to make this better? In terms of like making it more engaging.
Well, the directing is fine. Like, I mean, I really like Duncan Jones. I like his. He kind of. I say that, and I almost take it back right away, because what needs to make a movie like this work is like grounded film work, and this is pretty good about not like letting the camera fly willy nilly ever, because that's such a disconnection for me. Like, I need to know that the camera
exists in the real world.
Yeah, like, and maybe that's just me being technically nitpicky again, but it breaks the illusion for me to have this kind of whoa.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, everything is fake. This is all fake. Everything's fake.
It's all fake. So
cameras don't
fly
do
in that guy's ear and out this guy's ear and whatever. But just getting away from the technical, I think a story focused entirely on the orcs, or maybe it's focused on the orcs and then flips it to the humans. I don't know. Like, we don't need three potential protagonists. Like keep it orc versus human, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want it to bounce back and forth, or stick with an orc character, and then at the end you realize, or maybe vice versa, the humans are dealing with just this, dumb foreign threat. And I hate to riff off of like Dances with Wolves or that kind of Avatar style, but there needs to be kind of an introduction to the orc world that, hey, it's different than they're not just monsters. Like,
I think I kind of agree, but I would say I think they need to make Garona the central character. I think things need to focus on her. It's kind of where the movie more or less starts, and I think if they focus on her, you get a person who lives in both worlds. Something, and also I find her story to be the most interesting. Like,
I do too.
Of a outcast in both areas. A hero and villain, but a hero to the side she identifies the least with, maybe, and a villain to the side that she wanted to join in some respects, and also the idea that the sorcerer, the wizard, or whatever, they make allusions to him being her actual father, which would have been an interesting exploration, or at least an interesting point of connection.
I'd say there's a fun fan edit here where you cut the movie to focus on her. It'd be short, but I'd like to see that.
And I think you can. I think something that they had to do with Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones is a huge story right now. Like, it's what did it last 6-7 seasons, 8, 9? I don't even remember. I think it was.
I blanked out the last 2 years, so I was really upset.
But anyway, long seasons, hours and hours of footage, and they still had to collapse characters down. They had to cut out parts. And I think this, similar to that, like, this movie needed to understand that you're not going to tell every story that the video game tells. And maybe they tried, because we haven't played all of it, but it still feels like it's too much. Like, there are too many characters on both sides that you have to keep track of, and there's too many plot threads happening. So they needed to cut some of it down. And I think cutting down, like, even just taking out Lothar's son, like, who cares about that plot?
Yeah, who cares?
We don't need that.
That's too much.
Taking out his son, and taking out, I'm trying to think of If there's any like really strong plot threads that
I mean,
taking
honestly,
out
I don't
Blackhand,
really,
like we don't need Blackhand in this. Like take him
Blackhand I
out.
don't mind, but like Lewis Khadgar, I don't give a shit about this
Well,
young wizard trying to find himself. You know, I
yeah,
don't
like
like.
that's another point. Is like could have taken like I know you needed another wizard or whatever. He could have come in
Yeah.
the second movie. Like just delay
Yeah.
his entrance. You know, like we don't need a bumbly wizard who doesn't know how to be a wizard yet or
Yeah.
whatever. Like let's have the main wizard. He dies. We got another wizard. Like it's not
Right,
even
right.
like Khadgar, from my memory, did that much. He was just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway.
Edit. All right. So, how many MySpace name generator prompts do you give this movie?
It's technically well made. There's some story problems, but I appreciate what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Even if it comes up short. So, fuck. I'm gonna give this a. I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm gonna give it a 7,
Okay.
which is pretty good for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm close to that. I'm a very high 6. It's almost a 7 for me, but I'm gonna give it a 6.
I think
Because it's not a bad movie to watch. It was entertaining. I think the pacing is a little wonky because the beginning's kind of fast forwarded, and I don't have a proper sense of time of like when this is happening and then when we reconnect. But I don't know. Like my quibbles are very nitpicky. That can be overlooked once you're kind of invested in the story, I think.
if this had a sequel, I'd probably. If this had a sequel, I would rate it higher because maybe there was a chance to wrap some.
If they could have delivered on it, and if this did the legwork, so the sequel didn't waste time on it, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
and less goofy looking human interaction or integration, and I'd be happy.
All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this episode of Pixel Theater. Hope you've enjoyed it. Do all the things on all the social medias. Find us on Facebook, Twitter. Go to your favorite podcast app. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your lovers. Tell your enemies. Tell everybody you know. And we will be back next time with a different movie. Our schedule is a little different now. We're kind of doing things out of order. So I don't know what's going to come up next. And I never
Spin
will.
the wheel.
And that's where we are now. But have a great day, and we'll see you back here next time.
This is a technical difficulties production.